Pod Pals, it's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. Today, we've got a podcast audit session with my pod pal Priya from I Wish I Knew That Earlier. And we're going to jam out and do some podcasting tips and strategies and see if we can build some momentum. So Priya, welcome to the show.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me on. And I'm excited to see where my podcast can go.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. So let's dive on in. I want to kick it off and set a goal. So let's say that you and I are talking 6 months from today, and you've built some amazing momentum with your show, with your brand. What would that look like for you? Paint that picture for us.
So, Adam, I think what that looks like for me is, so my goal is to grow my audience size. 6 months from now, I'd like to see 500 more listeners in my podcast.
All right. Excellent. That's a very, very doable goal. Now, what do you feel like is the main obstacle keeping you from that goal right now?
I think me, definitely. I think it's just having that guidance in terms of what do I need to look for to get my audience listening, because I see the impressions are high. So how I understand it is people are seeing the podcast show up in their feeds, but I'm not able to then convert them to listeners. So I think having an idea of what can help convert them would be good, but also my mindset shift in terms of my podcast is worthy of listening to, and I have incredible guests, and I'm just excited to share that. So I think knowing that it's worth listening to will also help that shift.
Okay. I was saying we can definitely work on that. Now, who is the ideal listener for your show? Who's like, oh, this person should be listening every single episode?
So for me, my avatar, it is in their mid to late 20s, and they know they're made for something more, and they're just curious in terms of different ways to get there. And listening to these stories on people who have done what they want to do or doing things that they dream of doing is sort of that guidance that can help them get there. So, yeah.
I like it. I like it. Now, what generation label do we use for people in that age group? That's not
I never know. Is it Gen Z, millennials? It's a bit of a blur. We're at the border.
Okay. So that's something to think about.
Okay.
With our branding / marketing is maybe figure out what that label is and start using that. We could talk like subtitles of your show. So I wish I knew that earlier. Tips and conversations for adventurous minded millennials that are curious about blah, blah, blah. Like having that little who it's for can really help. Like with a podcast name, when I read it, I've got some basic rules. When I see it, I want to know who it's for. I want to know what it's about, and I want some keywords in there.
Okay.
So I think if you were to do like a subtitle or title extension, I wish I knew that earlier. Conversations for personal millennials seeking personal growth, or I'm just like making up things, but
what you're saying,
like an identifying term of that age group. Even if you said 20 somethings or, adventurous minded 20 somethings or something like that, like they go, oh, that's for me. But we need some keywords in there. So do you feel like you have certain topics that you cover a lot? Like I'm thinking about things like personal growth, mindset, entrepreneurship, like are any of those ringing a bell? Like we talk about that
all
a
of
lot.
them.
Okay.
Like mindset is definitely a key one. Entrepreneurship is a big part of it as well. And personal growth. Yeah.
Okay. So with this strategy, then this is called my title extension strategy.
Okay.
Where, if you wanted to keep the, I wish I knew that earlier branding, then we would say, okay, the name of the show, the name of the brand is I wish I knew that earlier, but the actual title line of the podcast is I wish I knew that earlier, conversations. It would be something like personal growth and entrepreneurship tips for adventurous 20 somethings or something along those lines, where I want to try to sneak in 2 keywords in there. So keywords like entrepreneurship, personal growth, mindset, tips. We want to think like, what are your ideal listener avatar? What are they putting in Apple or Spotify search bar? So
So
not
sorry,
go ahead.
how does that, what's the difference between the title line and the main title?
Same, no difference. Same thing. So
Okay.
this whole block of text will be on the title line of your podcast. So,
Okay.
for example, where do you host your show? Is it in like Spotify or is it in Libsyn, Buzzsprout?
So Spotify, Amazon, and Apple.
But where do you host the show? So, like when you upload a new episode, where do you upload it to?
Oh, Spotify.
Got it.
Spotify for
Yeah, got it.
podcasts.
Okay, got
Sorry.
it. No problem. So there's a section of Spotify where you put your podcast art, not for the episode, but for like the show, like your show
Yeah.
art, your main, the description, all that. So there'll be just a title line there, and that's where you're going to put the full length updated title. And the reason we're doing this is because that has the most search power out of anything
Okay.
that we can do. So
Yeah.
more than episode title, show notes, host description, the title of the show, we want searchable terms in there. So the way I look at it is if we have, even if you just did, I wish I knew that earlier, colon, entrepreneurship, mindset, personal growth, if you just listed words like that, those are like fishing lines in the water. So somebody searches personal growth, your show is now going to pop up in that search. If they search entrepreneurship, where before it won't. People search entrepreneurship. I wish I knew that earlier. Isn't, you know, like none of those words are search terms, and that's the problem with like organic growth. Is this making sense now? Like,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
we want at least 2 words that your ideal listener are going to put into Apple or Spotify on that search bar. So, for example, right now, a lot of people are working on their business taxes or their taxes in general.
Yeah.
And so I searched in Apple. I was going on a long road trip. I'm like, I'm going to binge listen on some podcasts. So I searched tax savings in the Apple search bar, and all these different shows popped up. And one show popped up called Small Business Tax Savings. I'm like, oh, that's for me.
Yeah.
And I've listened to probably, well, I had a 13-hour drive and I was listening the whole way there and back. So I listened to 26 hours of small business tax savings.
Wow. At least it was a productive drive.
Exactly. But that's how it works. So I want people that are your ideal listeners that search certain things, your show pops up, they go, this wasn't exactly what I was, but this is what I need. Like, this is what I want to listen to. That you got a shot now with this group. So that's going to pay off. And I have people that do this. I just talked to a client that just added a title extension, and she's like, it's grown my podcast exponentially with just by having some keywords in there. So is that making sense?
It makes so much sense.
And just kind of workshop it a little bit, but if you can find 2 keywords in there, some identifying terms, like if you do find the name of the age group that represents your ideal avatar and they identify with that, I think that's important as well. So they see that. And I would try to add this subtitle to your podcast art so they visually see it and they go, oh, Generation Z, I'm Generation Z. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Those are words I use to describe myself. Or those are the words that I was searching for, and they see it in the art, and it's not podcasters didn't have kind of creative names that aren't real keyword friendly, or they're not marketing friendly.
And
I always say, we're creative people, but we need to be very strategic with the name of our show and our podcast art, and then be creative with the content. We can't be ultra creative with the name or nobody finds it. And that's a problem. So yeah, I think that's an initial strategy. And then, like, as you name episodes and things like that, if you talk about entrepreneurship or personal growth or mindset tips, use those words in the title of the episode for sure, because those will help with like individual episodes can be pulled up in a Google search now and things like that. So that's going to really help with your growth as well.
Okay, because what I've been doing is like using specific lines or quotes that the speakers say to sort of draw that curiosity or suspense, but adding in the keywords would be good there as well.
Yeah. So what I would do is, and I like the question format. I do like that because that'll actually help you pull up. And if somebody asks that question to Google, and we're pulling up, but then go, okay, what is the question? And then go, are there any keywords that we can put in there that will help with discoverability. So,
Okay.
Whatever the question is, if they talk about entrepreneurship or they talk about personal growth strategies or whatever, then we're going to put that word in there. We got to find a way and just like, okay. So for me, if you search podcasting tips anywhere,
Yeah.
I show up, and I'm usually the first person because that's all over my brand. And every episode almost has like tips for podcasters, podcasting tips for blah, blah, blah. And it's just different variations of that phrase. And so I know that's what my ideal listener is searching for. They go to Apple and they put in podcasting tips, or they put in podcasts about podcasting. And I've got both. And we're good.
Okay.
So yeah, is that making sense so far, Priya?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this will help tremendously. So when I look at podcast growth, I look at it like a pie chart, and 50% of the pie chart is what I call organic discoverability. And that's what we just talked about. Setting up the right words so that the searchability factor. I quit using SEO because that's more like web based.
Okay, I was about to drop that in, but good thing I didn't.
No, I mean, I just started kind of shifting that language a little bit because people they get Google brain a little bit, like, oh, what's all this website for my blog, all this SEO stuff, because it's different.
Yeah.
Even with Google, people type in a question, right? How do I save money on taxes? Whatever. But in Apple Podcasts, I don't put a question. I just put the words tax savings, and that pulls up. So we have to think a little bit differently. So when you do interact with the listener, ask them how they found you, where they found you, what they were looking for, and kind of make notes of like, okay, they searched, millennial entrepreneurship or something like that, and your show popped up. Okay, let's mark that down. That's how I learned podcasting tips. I just asked my listeners, what were you looking for? And they go, podcasting tips. I'm like, noted. Let's start using this more. So that's 50% of the pie chart, what we just talked about. The other 50% is what I call effort-based marketing. So within that side of the pie chart, we've got social media, we've got email marketing, we've got guesting on other people's podcasts, we've got paid ads. So all the effort-based stuff and the nice thing is like the organic discoverability, once you set those terms in there, they're working for you around the clock. And it's so nice, Priya. Like, it took me forever to figure this out. And I'm just like, post everywhere on social media.
That's where we're at, Adam. That's where we're at.
When people I just switch my words around, and all of a sudden my ideal listeners are just finding me, and a lot of them are becoming my clients and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my God, like this is so much easier than post 45 things on Facebook and Pinterest and TikTok and all this stuff. So, so with that effort-based marketing, we look at what is, the easiest variation of this, what is lucrative, what is fun, what is ELF, easy, lucrative, fun, what is efficient, and what makes you actually like love your business instead of like social media it burns so many podcasters out. They're like, I can't, I don't have time to create 40 assets for each episode, and my guest doesn't share it out anyway. So like, what's the use? So we look at, that side of the equation with social media marketing, or like when a new episode comes out, I've got what I call my 72-hour rule for podcast promotion. So when a new episode goes out, I challenge my listeners and my clients to post 5 unique marketing assets within 72 hours. So that could be a carousel post on Instagram. That could be a video post. That could be email marketing via a newsletter. That could be a live stream, but 5 unique assets, and building up to that, not all at once. If you're doing 1 now or 0 now, then we can build up and do 2 or 3 and then add as we go. But we're going to do that within a 72-hour window, because that's when a podcast is kind of considered new content. And if you get people listening, it's just like a social media post where you post something on Instagram and people start commenting right away. Instagram shows it to more people. Same thing happens with podcasts. So new episode goes live, you post on social media, you're on your email marketing, letting people know, here's why you should listen to this episode. Here's 4 top takeaways, or here is 1 problem that will be solved by this episode. And your marketing is making that obvious. So, I gotta listen to this thing. This is gonna be worth my time. driving traffic to it within 72 hours. So I recommend not spreading your marketing out over a week, which is what a lot of podcasts do.
That's what I'm doing right now.
And do the same thing, but just condense it to the 72-hour window.
Yeah.
So, you can go AM and PM post on Instagram, or like I focus mainly on Instagram, but wherever your people are at, and eventually trying to find one, maybe two social media platforms. I don't post anywhere other than Instagram, 0. And people are like, oh my God, what about TikTok? What about Pinterest? And I'm like, well, Instagram is like the low hanging fruit for me. That's where most of my ideal listeners are hanging out. That's where I'm getting the most engagement. That's where most clients are coming from. So I focus on that. And am I missing out because I'm not on LinkedIn or Pinterest? 100%. But I'm okay with that because I like my sanity better and I like enjoying the process. And that was one of the big shifts of me being able to do a 3-day work week. So that's something where it's like, all right, I can work 1 or 2 days less per week, or I can post all my stuff on a million different channels. I'll take my non-work days. So
yeah.
So any questions on that 72-hour rule?
Just like if for like episodes that have already been launched, like, and I make the change with the keywords and all that, do you still see power in driving audiences to those older episodes, or not?
Yeah.
Really?
So a strategy you could do, are you doing 1 episode per week?
Yeah, I've moved to that now.
Okay. Excellent. Good for you. And what day do you release on?
Tuesday.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So if you were to go 72-hour rule, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're promoting the Tuesday episode, and then you could do a post on Friday that's like a greatest hits reminder episode, or kind of a throwback, and go, hey, if you missed this episode, here's a fan favorite or one of my favorite episodes, and just do a little Instagram reel on it or whatever, but make it like easy and fun, like something you want. Like I love doing B-roll Instagram reels to where it's me washing the dishes and I overlay some text over it and I put some fun like 1990s hip hop over it or whatever. I'm like, I love that song. And I just kind of have fun with it. It takes me 15 minutes and I put it out there. So kind of have, if you're going to do some extra stuff, make sure it's stuff that you actually enjoy and not like, I want to throw up in my mouth every time I do this because I just hate, this is just like, not another carousel. So yeah, I think that's what we're looking for there. But I like that a lot. That way you're kind of referencing, or if you do a newsletter, you could have your normal write-up and then, hey, today's throwback episode of the week is, and then kind of work into the back catalog. And like for me, I should probably take my own advice here, but like I've got 463 episodes live as of today.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And people won't go back into the Wayback Machine. So I guess one way that I do this is I kind of periodically collect audience audio where I have them record their fan favorite episode. Like, so they get to shout out their show on my show. They record that and they go, hey, this is Priya from the I Wish I Knew That Earlier podcast. And my favorite episode of Podcasting Business School is episode 445, where Adam talks about the podcasting success timeline. I got a lot out of it because of blah, blah, blah. And I'll put that at the end of an episode. So I just wrapped up an episode and then boom, here's a recommendation from another listener not named Adam.
Yeah, I was going to say it's great.
And then that gives them something to go and go, oh, and I save those and you can use those more than once. So I've got fan favorite episode recommendations from like my 200s episodes where if somebody's just now finding it, there's a slim chance they've gone all the way back and listened to the 200 episodes, but now maybe they will and kind of bench forward from there. So, little opportunities like that. I think it's a good idea when you've got a back catalog. We can definitely use that. And if you guest on other people's podcasts, if you speak on virtual summits or live stages, have some of those benchmark episodes. Like this is a major strategy. When you go on someone else's show, have an episode that like, if you could pick one episode that you would love for everyone to start off with, like it was amazing content or everybody's favorite episode or most downloaded, got a great response. Set the tone. Don't count on your latest episode being the one that they're going to love. Like, yeah, kind of hedge your bets a little bit and be like, you need to start with this. Or if you're on somebody else's show and you talk about a certain topic and you've got an episode that really leans into that topic, send them to that one. And that way we can kind of leverage that back catalog in that way as well.
Okay. No, I like those strategies, Adam. Thank you.
I'm full of strategies, Priya. So how many episodes are you at right now?
So I've done 21, but
Oh,
I'd really spaced it out before. Like I've had this for like a year or two, a year and a half,
okay.
and really spread it out. But now I'm like going one episode a week, so we should be churning out content,
Yeah.
good content, like really
Yeah.
good content. So
And
I'm really excited.
it's primarily interview based.
Yeah, but I'm trying to drop in some solo episodes because I listened
Good.
to one of your episodes
Good.
before, relying too much on interviews as well.
Yeah.
So.
Especially like I feel like weekly content trumps a lot of everything else as far as like just getting our listeners in that listening habit and not
Mm,
we don't if they're in the routine of listening to our show at a certain day, certain time, we don't want to disrupt that at all. We don't want a pattern disrupt that involves them not listening to our show.
yeah.
So if doing maybe you can record a few Priya's top takeaways episodes. Maybe you record an interview and then you go and record yourself a 10-minute top takeaways. And then you've got that for the next week. And that way it's easier on you and your audience will love it. Like I've never, ever had somebody come back to me and go, I did a solo episode and everyone hated it and they all unsubscribed. Most of the time, like people are like, I got so much feedback. I couldn't believe the amount of positive feedback I got from doing this first solo episode. People want to hear more from you and your story. And another idea that, like, if you want to curate an audience of a certain age group, look to bring those types of people onto your show and do like a panel style. Like, grab, a group of 3 to 5 entrepreneurial minded 20 somethings and pick a topic and go, let's talk about how you started your business or mindset strategies. Like, let's talk about what you've overcome and just do little group discussions and kind of become the people's champion of your niche and in your age group. And that way that age group is now going, wow, my voice is being heard on this show. This is the place for me.
Yeah.
And that's how you, again, I'll use the word the people's champion. Like, you become the people's champion for your niche because of accessibility, of feeling heard, of like they become a part of the show and their voice becomes a part of the brand. They're going to gravitate towards you and your show. So I think that is something, when you're looking at how do I get weekly episodes out, definitely keep doing your interviews, but look at some solos where you maybe unpack or just a straight up solo episode, but maybe once per month, or like a panel style episode. My brain always goes towards patterns. So if you wanted to do a pattern, you could do something like interview, and then you have the topic of that interview, and then you do Priya's top 4 takeaways on the next like a 10-minute takeaway episode, and then maybe the next week is a panel discussion with your age group on that topic. And now we're talking about that, and then you could just go in that 3-week cycle like that. Or if you wanted to add another solo episode on the back edge of that, so you could be doing like 1, maybe 2 interviews per month. And we all know those are the most like time, just eat up so much time with the booking, the scheduling, and emailing them 5 times for their headshot. That like, hey, you haven't sent it to me yet. The episode needs to go live. I need your headshot. All the chasing down, and that way there's a little bit less of that. You can knock out some other content and give your audience a few different flavors. So just some ideas. Any winners in there that you feel good about?
I really like the panel discussion, and
Good.
I think having people like of the age that I'm targeting, like you said, creates that relatability, and they feel seen and heard, and draws them in. So I really like that, Adam. Thank you. I'm gonna think on that and execute where I can.
Good. And kind of dangle the carrot out there of, hey, if you come on and do my panel, then you get to shout out your social media profile or your business website, or like just make it a thing so that they're like, oh yeah, this I'm getting a benefit out of this as well. And they become podcast famous. I mean, that's a huge benefit.
Everyone's dream.
As seen on the I Wish. So yeah, I think that's congrats on moving to weekly content. Now the next step is, how do we really become that show for my ideal listener, for my niche, and be like the place where my audience feels heard and they their thoughts, opinions are being infused into the content. I think that could be a differentiating strategy for you that makes your listener go, oh, this is my jam. This is who I need to be listening to. So cool.
I like that, Adam. Thank you for all the strategies that
All
you
right.
shared.
Yes, you are very welcome. Now, I want you to shout out your brand, your website, your social media. Where do people need to go if they want to come and connect with our pod pal Priya?
So it's the name of the podcast on Instagram. I wish I knew that earlier _. I have a website set up as well where you can find the episodes and read along with blogs. And that's I wish I knew that earlier.com. And yeah, my podcast is I wish I knew that earlier. So have a listen. I'm always open to feedback and thoughts. So yeah, reach out.
Outstanding. Well, Priya, I appreciate you coming on, being willing to participate with a podcast audit. And for any of you listening in, first, make sure you go and support Priya. Go check out her website, go check out her show, download a few episodes. And then if you want to be just like her and come on the show for a podcast audit, then just go to my website, podcastingbusiness.school, click on the freebie button, sign up for a podcast audit, get on the calendar. We're filling up all the way into the summertime now. So go ahead and jump on that, come on the show, and we'll build some momentum with your podcast. So Pod Pals, we are going to leave it right there. I'm going to send you out into the world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you next time.